Welcome to the Poultry Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Molnix. I've had that period in my life where I just sit back and I go, man, what is my purpose? What should I be doing? What has God put me on this planet to do? And what's interesting about it is today's guest actually wrote a book called The Purpose Factor. Coming across this book and reading, not only reading the book, listening to the audiobook, and just going through this thing multiple times, I had to get this guy on. On the show today, I have Brian Bosché. Brian is the author of The Purpose Factor. And Brian also shares just a love of helping people find their purpose. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Appreciate that.
Hey, Brian, you're an author. You got a mission and vision and a purpose for your life. Who's Brian?
This is not the space that I would have ever expected to end up in. If you were like, zoom back into Brian's past at 16 years old, and you're like, Brian, what do you want to do with your life? And Brian would have told you, I want to be a national news anchor. That's what I would have told you. And that became my career pursuit, not only from the end of high school on into college and into law school. Everything was focused on becoming this national news anchor, broadcaster, communicator. And it's funny, right? Because that's a skill set that I use every single day today, but it's not how I thought I would use it. When I got to the end of law school, this purpose timeline began, if you will, because I finished law school. I got my dream job as a national journalist covering government corruption and terrorism. And that dream job lasted a whopping 1 year. While I was in law school too, I got married, and that marriage ended the same month I got laid off from my dream job. And when you go through something like that, especially for me, because I had never experienced depression growing up or in college or in law school. I mean, law school is kind of painful, but I didn't experience depression. And I was plunged into a very dark depression, like rapidly. And kind of what was also impacting that was an undealt with childhood sexual trauma from when I was 7 years old. So like all these three primary things, layoff, divorce, childhood sexual trauma, being very undealt with, put me in a place where I was asking all of my friends and primarily all the people that spoke in my life, my mentors, I was asking them like what I should do to get through the season. And all of them kept coming back to this theme. Hey, Brian, you need to find your purpose. You've got to find your purpose. And I was a little frustrated because they were all super well-intended. And Brandon, maybe you felt this way before. Somebody tells you to do something, but it's like, good luck with that, right? And so I started plunging myself into all of the books, the research, documentaries. I mean, if anything related remotely to purpose, I was watching it or reading it. To kind of put a cap on this, it's like for a year and a half, I just would demolish all this stuff on purpose. And then I recognized that there were like 4 buckets that would come up. I realized 1, purpose is about living a life of contribution. And out came the definition, purpose is the best of what you have to help others. As I read all these experts, I noticed that there were 4 buckets. Something natural, bucket 1. Something related to skills, bucket 2. Something related to passion, bucket 3. And bucket 4, coming of age and origin story. And it became this research working hypothesis of breaking purpose down into 4 elements and its discovery into a sequence. And then the ultimate destination for me, this wasn't actually about starting a company. I was just trying to figure this out for me. But the ultimate destination was, how can I turn this thing into a decision-making tool that is consistently reliable no matter the season of my life?
Man, you just went to depths that I could never imagine as you talk about your history. It amazes me how we're all put on this earth for a purpose. It took some real trials for you to find that purpose. I mean, right off the bat, getting out of college and everything's grand and marriage and all these great things. And shocker, life didn't turn out the way Brian, the 16-year-old Brian wrote.
That's right. Yeah, I was just shy of 10 years later, right? I that dream that I had came from when I was 16 years old. You come out of law school around 25, just shy of a decade of having that dream, you get smacked in the face with it being taken away. And it's a common theme for a lot of folks who go after any dream. Doesn't matter what industry it is, whether it's somebody wants to play in the NFL, somebody wants to own real estate, somebody wants to own a farm, somebody wants to become a national broadcaster. There's riches in every niche and there's dreams in every niche. And I've coached a couple of NFL football players who have gotten cut from the NFL. And it's a bit of an identity crisis because one of the big myths, and Brandon, you know this, like one of the big myths about purpose is that purpose is a certain job. When somebody says, my purpose is to be an NFL player, purpose is to be this, I was like, well, wait a second. How many people have you seen, other than like Brett Favre, who really pushed the upper limits of age in the NFL, that it was a lifetime game? It's not a lifetime game, which means purpose can't be a specific job, because my first question I'm going to ask you is, well, what if you woke up tomorrow and didn't have that job? So purpose can't be that. That's why purpose is essentially a toolbox. It's a toolbox of things that you have to give away no matter your job.
I don't need you to call out your age, but how long you've been working on this?
Almost 12 years. Almost 12 years. I can call out my age. I'm 36 years old, but I've been at this for about almost 12.
Okay. In your book, The Purpose Factor, you've had a little bit of success with it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
If I can encourage anybody, because social media is kind of deceiving, right? Social media is like, you scroll through it. Man, let's say you're 16 years old today. That's different than when I was 16, which I didn't have the social media thing until college or whatever. So people today scrolling social media in high school going, oh, look at that, billionaire 23-year-old Kylie Jenner. If I just post more to Instagram, I could be a billionaire, which is a totally delusional statement. It's not true. And what you realize that even in the age of social media and now AI, real dreams still take decades. Real big dreams still take decades, or at least years. Dreams do take years. And it was a dream of mine to write this book on purpose even 12 years ago. And it took six-ish, 7 years to do that. And rejection's a hard thing because, and there's a lot of stories. You can talk to a lot of authors and they'll tell you, if you're going to get a published book, not a self-published book, our book, The Purpose Factor, its manuscript got turned down over 70 times in the pursuit of getting it published. And so that alone feels like a milestone. But then a lot of times, the mistake that authors make, right, is they finish the book and they think the publishing of the book is the finish line, but it's actually the start line. This is where the distribution responsibility takes over, that if you believe it can help people, you have the duty to get it in as many hands as possible.
We're talking today to leaders in the poultry industry. Guys that are knee deep in manure today because something broke, the egg conveyor broke, or the feeder broke, or something, the employee called in sick. All of these things that people love to focus on because that's what's in front of them today. What do you have to say to them in regards to finding a purpose?
You actually kind of remind me of something. Like, first of all, that means we're talking to a whole bunch of people who are a lot stronger than me. They're a lot stronger, a lot better than me. I'll never forget this episode of Conan O'Brien had the late military sniper Chris Kyle. I think when Chris Kyle sat down in the chair next to Conan, he kept saying like, "Thank you, sir." I think this was right. It was about like, "Thank you, sir." And Conan's like, "You don't want to call me sir." I'm like I'm a talk show host, right? I'm just an author. Okay, I'm just an author that might have some things that might be helpful. And so the one thing I would say is that it doesn't matter where we are, where we stand, what position we sit in. John Maxwell says that leadership is influence. It's not positional, right? And he's a really special friend and mentor in my life. And so I've gotten to watch that firsthand, is that leadership really is influence. So no matter where you stand, you have to ask yourself, with the influence you've been given over one person, over a team, over yourself, what are you doing with it? Because when I look at like the purpose of work generally, the purpose of work is to get things done and bring people together to get things done. Like if we just want to look at its functional core, it's about getting things done and bringing people together to get things done. Now, what's cool about that is I was once talking to, I can't say his name, but I was once talking to somebody. He's a very influential person. And in the context of this conversation, he said, listen, name me the last 10 motivational talks that changed your life. And he was talking to me. And I'm like, in the space. And I'm like, I think I rattled off like 3. He's like, it's okay. Most pastors can't remember the last 10 sermons they gave. And then he said, now, name me the last 10 people that changed your life. And that's easy. I can go way past 10. I can list off a whole bunch of people that have changed my life. And he said, it's people in relationship, authentic relationship, that change people. And so when you look at yourself, if you're in the position of leadership, or if you're not in a titled position of leadership and you stand shoulder to shoulder on a team of colleagues and you have influence with those colleagues, you have the greatest possible chance through influence of changing somebody's life in authentic relationship. And no matter what the craft is, it doesn't matter what the craft is. It could be writing a book, being an author and speaking. It could be woodworking. It could be driving a NASCAR vehicle, changing tires on a NASCAR vehicle. It doesn't matter. In those team environments, We stand shoulder to shoulder together in authentic relationship. And sometimes when we look at the work, we're like, the work. That's the thing. I've got to focus on the work. Yes, and, right? Because that's the minimum requirement of the job. We got to get the job done. But when I look to my left or my right, or I look across the table, or I look at the team that I'm leading, the real work is finding creative ways while doing the work to transform the lives around me. Now, a lot of people are like, well, what are you talking about? The job's a job. We're just there to get the work done. That's not really my thing. It's not really my responsibility. I'm like, kind of. The greatest possible chance to do excellent work is to transform the lives of the people on the team you're in. Google did this very famous internal study called Project Aristotle. And one of the big conclusions of Project Aristotle, it was a study that was looking at effective teams versus ineffective teams. And one of the basic conclusions of the study was purpose-centered teams were 300% more effective than non-purpose-centered teams. Which means if I take the time to change the lives of the people around me, we're going to be more effective anyway.
We will be back after a quick break.
Are you an egg farmer looking to optimize your operations? To streamline your egg flow and maximize efficiency? Then mark your calendars. Prism Controls, the inventor of egg flow, is bringing the future of egg flow to peak, April 9th through 10th. In Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Convention Center, we're unveiling the next generation of egg flow, a revolutionary system designed to utilize today's technology to elevate your production to unprecedented levels. Imagine seamless, precise egg movement, reducing breakage and boosting your bottom line. Our cutting-edge technology is engineered to adapt to your specific needs, providing unparalleled control and reliability. See how Prism Controls can transform your farm. Stop by our booth at Peak in Minneapolis, April 9th through 10th. We'll show you how to crack the code to greater efficiency. Prism Controls, the future of egg flow is here.
Going back, you mentioned everybody in your life's like, find your purpose. Find your purpose. It sometimes becomes very cliche when you tell somebody, find your purpose, because I'm sorry, I've been there. I don't know how to find my purpose. Can you help out with that?
Yeah, it does feel cliche because, like, what are the conclusions there? Okay, so let's look at the typical ways people find their purpose. We read a book, which, I mean, I have one of those. So no knocking on books, right? I have a book. They listen to podcasts. They watch YouTube videos. They go course, mastermind, conference, whatever it is. The issue is actually not the delivery vehicle. The issue is how we look at it. For decades, we've looked at purpose discovery as a very journey-driven, emotionalized experience. And can somebody find their purpose in a journey-driven, emotionalized experience? Yes, but not often. Way less than 1% of the time. When you watch some garden variety tech billionaire giving a graduation speech, they always talk about how lucky they are or follow your passion. And kind of side note there, passion is a horrible decision-making tool, because if you look at the dictionary definition of passion, you're going to find that its definition is a barely controllable emotion, which right there tells you it's not a reliable decision-making tool. It's better to look at passion as pull passion, meaning the thing that pulls you, meaning the problem in the world that you're here to solve. But coming back to this idea that purpose is an emotional journey thing was actually the primary reason I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated with this idea that I was going to, I don't know, backpack through Europe, pay for an expensive vacation, stare into a sunset until I got clarity, and it wasn't sufficient. And I realized what it lacked was a process. Funny enough, when people are saying, I need to find my purpose, it's actually not purpose they seek directly. They seek the result of living a life according to their purpose, which means they seek fulfillment, significance, meaning I like the word fulfillment. And what I'm focused on when I'm working with people or leaders is how do I create fulfillment on demand? Because fulfillment drives willingness to sacrifice, and sacrifice drives success over the long term. So what I want you to think about is purpose is two things. One, purpose is the best of what you have to help others. It's the best of what you naturally have. It's the best of the skills you've acquired. It's the best of the knowledge you've acquired around the problems you solve. And it's also the best of the wisdom and perspective you got from your growing up years, whether they were good or they were net frustrating. That's what it is. It's a grouping of those things to live out in a contribution. And when you know those things, it's also a decision-making tool. A decision-making tool that says, with this new opportunity I'm considering, how can I give the best of what I have? Because if I can, I'll take the opportunity. In the current opportunities I'm in, the person that I'm leading, the person that's right in front of me, how can I give them the best of what I have? Because if I can, I'm going to help them experience fulfillment and they'll be more successful. So for me, instead of looking at purpose like a journey, because I think that's oftentimes what discourages people is looking at purpose like a journey, because it makes them think, I can't get any kind of remote clarity at all today. It's going to take years. And what if I don't find it? And that's kind of discouraging. So purpose has parts. Purpose is contribution. Purpose is the best of what you have to help others. And it's your primary decision-making tool.
It's interesting because there's so many times we learn from hard things about what makes us tick and what we like to do, what we don't like to do, and going after passion, going after things. I mean, I'm on my second, third career, whatever I'm on. I lost count of how many different things I've done, but it's all been in pursuit of purpose. Even this podcast, what I'm finding is part of my purpose. And just to share a little story is the other day, I get distracted by recruiters and asking me, hey, would you be interested in doing that and interested in doing that? And as I sat in this FFA conference, watching these kids do what they absolutely were there to do, and they did it really, really well, I'm like, there's no other place in the world, no other job in the world that would let me be part of this, because I'm able to share my purpose with these kids. And that to me, as you know, we talk about different job titles, different positions, whether you're an egg washer, whether you're a manure scraper, whether you're a general manager, you sit in an office, or you're in the barns, going back to it's not just about what you're doing. That also helps get a paycheck, but making sure you're invested in that and helping others. Where do most people struggle in this area?
There are two reasons people don't experience consistent fulfillment. Number one reason, they don't have specific clarity on their purpose. 12 years ago, I didn't want to just write a book. I wanted to create the world's first purpose discovery assessment, which we have that as well. And everybody's like, no way, wait a second. You can't do purpose in an assessment. 20 minutes, I'm going to take some assessment, 20, 25 minutes, it's going to help me find my purpose. The answer is yes, because I took 12 years to figure out how to do it in 20 to 25 minutes. That's why you can. There are two reasons people don't live lives of fulfillment. The first one is they don't specifically know their purpose. They don't specifically know the best of what they have to contribute to others. And the second reason is they don't know the top ways you experience fulfillment. So for context, it's really purpose in one picture. And I want you to imagine it's you on the left and others on the right. There's an arrow going from you to others, the giving arrow, that represents purpose. Then there's an arrow that comes back to you that represents fulfillment. Fulfillment is the result of helping others with the best of what you have. I give purpose away, I get fulfillment back. But there's three primary ways that human beings receive fulfillment though. And it's really important to know those three ways so you can look for them. Because if you're not aware of where fulfillment comes from, it's hard to experience it consistently. The three ways are this. First, we experience fulfillment through gratitude, where we help somebody experience a life transformation or a change in outcomes. And they come back to us and say, Brandon, thank you so much. You radically changed my life. And I need to tell you how you did, because if it wasn't for you a couple of years ago when you were mentoring me, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. That's gratitude-driven fulfillment. The second way is the giving-driven fulfillment, which is you're not necessarily going to get that gratitude feedback loop, but you're going to get to watch the benefit of having helped someone, helped a team, help an organization. And then the third way we receive it is through our growth. So it's gratitude, giving, and growth. Growth has to be both quantitative and qualitative. So it can be quantitative, meaning I'm making more money, I'm raising my station in life, but I'm also growing in a qualitative way. My relationships are better, my mental health is better, my environment's better. Those are the three ways we receive it. So if I can get you specific clarity on your purpose, the best of what you have to help others, and specific clarity on how you best receive fulfillment, then it allows you to put yourself in a position where you can experience fulfillment consistently.
So does purpose evolve over time?
Evolve is a pretty good word. It's more that it becomes more specifically clear. So for example, it's kind of like if you were to imagine like a block of marble, well, it's a block of marble. But to a person who is a sculptor, there's a beautiful statue inside. And the more you chip away, it's kind of a metaphor, right? Like if we're working on our mental health, we have to peel back the layers. But the more you chip away, the more beautiful it becomes. And so the more you intentionally not only know your purpose, more specifically understand its application, get better at the skill sets you have, get better at leveraging the perspective and wisdom you have, you actually get sharper at what you've always had. And so for me, it's about getting more specific with it and then also being more effective in its application and its use.
Can you give me another example of something you've experienced that has helped somebody come out of their shell, so to speak, or their comfort zone, go after their passion, and then just blossom?
You can go through motivational discovery. You can say, all right, here's your purpose, take this assessment, or let's look at these 4 things. Let's get you specific clarity in that. Here's how you experience fulfillment. That's good operational knowledge, right? But the number one way somebody is going to want it more is through exposure. Jordan Peterson talked about this in an interview. He said, the world is an emotionally and physically dangerous place. And the only way to prepare a child for an emotionally and physically dangerous place is to increase their exposure responsibly to that risk. Now, that's about danger. That's about emotional danger, and that's about physical danger to help them understand the ways of the world. But the opposite is true for positive things. If you want somebody to have a growth mindset that they don't currently have, you have to expose them to the benefit of trying growth mindset for the first time. If you want somebody to experience fulfillment and they never have, you have to expose them and give them the opportunity to experience fulfillment for the first time. And an easy way to do that is take a very valuable skill set that you have. Look for somebody in your life that desperately needs that skill set. Go help them solve that problem that skill set has equipped you to solve. And watch what happens. 2 things. 1, you'll see their outcome transform. You'll get to watch that. 2, they might come to you and say, thank you so much. You radically changed that situation. That's unbelievable. And 3, by helping them, you're also going to grow quantitatively and qualitatively possibly as well. Discovery is one step, but exposure is another step. Because I think, Brandon, you and I probably take for granted that we have like a growth mindset. It's fascinating. The CIA, there's a guy on, I think his Instagram handle is called Everyday Spy, used to work at the CIA. And he said, the CIA studies criminal masterminds, crazy people, right? But also successful people as well. And one of the things he says is the reason they're successful is because they had so much childhood traumatic experience that it gave them a growth mindset. And he defines growth mindset, if I perform, I'll be rewarded, right? But not so much traumatic experience, we take on a toxic coping mechanism, which means the ultimate pinnacle of growth mindset is knife's edge close to toxic coping mechanisms. If you ever want to know why you see an incredibly famous person screw up royally, it's because the level of growth mindset they have puts them dangerously close to toxic coping mechanisms. And it's summarized in one quote. Richard Branson talks about how his headmaster in school told him, you'll either be a multimillionaire or you'll be in prison. That right there summarizes how close pinnacle growth mindset is to danger at the same time.
As you were thinking of that, I'm like, man, how many coping mechanisms and periods of time where I've coped with things because of that growth mindset of, hey, I want to do this, and I do it in extreme, and then it becomes a danger instead of just, can I level off on that? Can I back off? Yeah. What's a barrier for most people? Or some people, I guess.
There's a couple of barriers. The human being is a complicated thing, right? But there's a lot of barriers to human success. However, one of the big ones is overthinking. Psychologists and therapists call it ruminating, thinking repetitively on the same thing over and over. But overthinking is a big one. There are really 2 buckets of people. There's the overthinkers and there's the overactors. There are people who take action, like throw caution to the wind and they just go. That has its own problems. But if I had to pick, I'd rather one be an overactor than an overthinker. Now, the way that you break yourself of overthinking is to take action in the face of overthinking. I'm summarizing a George Patton quote where he says, courage is fear's last breath. Or I think it's something to the effect of courage is fear holding on 1 minute longer. And what that means is even in the face of fear, or even in the face of overthinking, or being perfectionistic, or procrastinating, or being a people pleaser, the courage is to do it in the face of that anyways. I speak a lot. And if anybody's ever asked me about stage fright or anything like that, Bruce Springsteen calls it anticipatory anxiety and a reverence for your audience. I always tell people, don't just plan to do the whole speech well. Plan to crush the first 60 to 90 seconds, because that's courage, right? Courage is fear holding on 1 minute longer. If you can overcome the first 60 to 90 seconds, it will give you the emotional confidence momentum for the rest of the talk.
What's interesting is, as you were talking about that and that fear of speaking and the fear of success or the fear of change is so real. It paralyzes people to think that, man, I just can't risk what I'm doing now, or I can't risk the way I am now because I don't think the people around me would want me to change or be successful in a lot of ways, where I think as a person, everybody around you wants you to be successful. They want you to be living out your purpose, because if everybody's living out their purpose, the world is a way better place than people that are paralyzed by making a decision, or paralyzed by, there's all of these uncontrollable things that I want to keep control over that I can't control. And I struggle with that, getting it sometimes, just because I'm quick to act, live on faith, jump out there, do it. And guess what? Unless it kills me, there's nothing that I usually can't recover from financially, emotionally, socially, whatever. Take the risk. But that's my natural instinct. Speaking to those who are less risk averse, I can see where they're coming from.
One of my favorite things I've gotten to research over the last 12 years, I've put in about 10,000 hours of research alone on origin story. Origin story is the moment or series of moments that most shaped your perspective from your childhood experience. There are 5 dominant themes, but one of the dominant themes and archetypes is the origin story childhood experience of rejection. And for most people, that's going to be parental rejection from a mom or dad. It just is the case. Now, whatever you experienced as a child, you primarily expect or fear as an adult. So if you had a father that made you feel like nothing was ever good enough, or you had a mother that made you feel like nothing was ever good enough, this is actually where imposter syndrome and fear of rejection is born. And so as an adult, we actually not only fear not being good enough, we also fear rejection. And so in decision making, most people are not making decisions based on intention and purpose alignment. Most people are making decisions based on the avoidance of a fear. So for example, if somebody's primary fear is rejection as an adult because they had a primary storyline of rejection, there are 3 primary ways that people protect themselves from rejection when they're making decisions. The first one is people pleasing. So people pleasing is what I do when I'm in front of people to protect myself from rejection. The second one is perfectionism. Perfectionism is what I do to protect myself from rejection before I see people. Procrastination is what I do to avoid seeing people at all. And all of these are protection mechanisms against rejection. And so this fear of success, because fear of success does get talked about a lot, it is kind of a cousin of fear of rejection. Because if I change, most likely what I assume is the environment or people group around me won't change. And if I change, how will that environment, circumstances, or group of people or family members around me, how will they look at me? And there's another piece to that too. A lot of people, we put on conferences and live events all the time. If you were to ask people to raise their hand, how many of you would admit to not liking your life or circumstances right now? The majority of the room would raise their hand. How many of you, and you ask another question, how many of you would like to have a better life or different life? And all the same people would raise their hand. Now, why do most people stay in the situation in which they raise their hand about? The first one, because of the fear of uncertainty. It is very strong research-backed conclusion that most people will prefer the miserable normal because it's what they know, as opposed to the purpose-aligned future. Because the switch is the uncertain part. The step from what I don't like to what I'll love is uncomfortable. We call them conviction moments. Conviction moments are where clarity and pain coexist at the same time. It's the best possible chance for somebody to make a change in their life. And they have to have clarity on 3 primary things. Clarity on who they are, that's their purpose. Clarity on their target. And then clarity on the first steps to be successful. It doesn't have to be the whole plan, right? Because that's impossible. Just the first steps to be successful. And then pain or discomfort. And here's the hard part. The pain has to be undelayed, uncoped, uncomfortable. If you can get clarity and pain to coexist, it's your opportunity for a conviction moment to get started in that direction that you absolutely want.
So we've talked about purpose in work, but purpose isn't always all about work. And I think that's the one caveat that I gleaned from a lot of following, your book and doing other things. Purpose can be in the way we serve other people at our family. Some people's purpose is to be a great mom, great dad, and their job is to provide food and show that love to their family. Can you expound on that?
When we pass the definition of purpose is the best of what you have to help others. It's written the way it's written for a reason. Help others. It doesn't necessarily mean in the context at work. It can be in a parental relationship. It can be in a brotherly relationship. It can be in a friendship. I have to look at my life in every person that I interact with this focusing question of how can I give this person the best of what I have? How can I give this person the best of what I have? If I sit down at a restaurant and the server walks up to the table, the question must be, how can I give that person the best of what I have? And it starts, by the way, with asking them their name, right? Because according to Dale Carnegie, their name is the sweetest sound to them. And so whether you're a mom, whether you're a dad, whether you're a CEO of a company, whether you're running a business, the focusing question is, how can I give the best of what I have to this person in this team? If you don't want to dig down deep and get focused on all the 4 elements of purpose and all of that, that's fine. Just ask yourself the question, how can I give this person my best? How can I give this person my best? And if you just ask that question, that means you'll give your best and you'll also get the fulfillment feedback loop. And here's another hack too. Like if somebody doesn't want to get really granular on their purpose discovery, the one question that I would ask anybody is, when you look back at your work and your career, what's been your absolute most fulfilled moment? And there's a couple of sub-questions. Who were you helping? What problem were you solving? And what solution were you delivering? And then the final question is, how did it make you feel to do that? Who were you helping? What problem were you solving? What solution were you delivering? And how did it make you feel to do that? Because if I can get you to identify the answers to those 4 questions, I can encourage you to do more of that now and in the future, and you can experience fulfillment on demand.
My mind immediately went to a time. As you were asking me that question, I literally was reliving my past. And so, yeah, that question definitely works. That question is very intriguing. It helps people connect. As you continue to move on your journey of helping people find their purpose, what's one thing they can do today to help themselves?
Is actually to stop and ask that question. I mean, you can go to purposetest.com and take our purpose factor assessment. You can get individual clarity on your purpose, a full 49-page report plus summary at the beginning on how to discover your exact purpose. 20 to 25 minutes. It'll be the best 20 to 25 minutes you spent in a long time. But if you don't do that, at least do this. Ask yourself that question, because here's the artfulness, if you will, and the science behind that question. Who were you helping? If you can answer that question, you can look for more of those type of people. What problem were you solving? If you can answer that question, you can look for more of those problems to solve. What solution were you delivering? If you can answer that question, you'll consistently deliver that great thing you have. And how did it make you feel? You can consistently replicate how it made you feel. Because if it made the hair on the back of your neck raise up because of how awesome the experience was and how much they thanked you, if you absolutely crushed it, the skill set you delivered to solve the problem, if it was one of those problems you just love solving, if it's one of those types of people that you love helping, if you can answer that question and then go out and do the answers to that question, you will be ahead of 95% of the population.
Well, I think most importantly, it's not just being ahead of 95% of the population, it's a better version of you.
Yes.
Because it's not a competition.
Yeah.
It goes back to even defining success. What does success look like? If you don't know what success looks like for yourself, then how do you ever achieve it? Some people, it's money, it's items, it's keeping up with the Jones. It's all of these things. What I've found success to look like is the joy in other people, the growth in other people. It helps me appreciate the simple things of a sunrise and a sunset and a really good long trail. Because if I'm giving myself to others and able to help them find their purpose, then even my time in relaxation is so much better because I'm able to enjoy the purpose. And I've usually got great people around me at that point. because it's other people striving with their purpose. Man, I mean, I really appreciate what you're offering to our listeners, and the fact that, purposetest.com, this is free, right? It's not going to cost anybody anything.
That's our full grade purpose discovery test. But you can, if you don't want to do the $49, there's our book available for sub 15 or sub $20 on Amazon.com.
Before I ask Brian to kind of wrap us up here a little bit with his closing statements, I just want to say, if finding your purpose is important, it's something that you need in the journey, please reach out to me. I'm going to commit 5 of the books. If you're interested, reach out to me and I'll get you a book sent to you. If that's what's standing in your way, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love to give back in that way. But Brian, going back to the folks that are in the industry, what are your words or last advice for them?
Don't live life in isolation. The world of social media and AI has served as an isolating function. I was just reading a study actually yesterday or this morning that isolation and depression and anxiety exist in a relationship. And if you experience short-term isolation, it encourages you to go create community. But if you experience long-term chronic isolation, it doesn't. It has the opposite effect. You just go further into isolation. And the real differentiator today among leaders and teams and effective people will be, in the age of social media and AI, the people that generate the interest and ability to create connection, because it's in authentic relationship that people change. Here's an interesting study. It's not a study, a stat. The kill rate on a lion hunting by itself is like 17%. The kill rate on a lion hunting in a group, or lions, is like 51%. There are so many tools today in social media, Instagram, YouTube. YouTube's a giant place to either entertain yourself or educate yourself. There are so many ways to do that individually. But in isolation, anxiety and depression grow like mold grows in dark, wet places. But with people, if we'll discover our purpose and do it with people, our success rate goes higher, way higher, because it's the power of community. The differentiator for all companies, like corporate cultures, company cultures, and team cultures, the differentiator won't be AI, because AI is helpful, right, in a lot of different ways. But the differentiator will be the companies and teams and cultures that put people together in authentic relationship.
So, Poultry Leadership Podcast listeners, not only is it important to find your purpose, but it's also important to find your pack. Find those that you'll hunt with. Find those that you'll be more successful with. We just appreciate, Brian, your time you're willing to give to the industry. Thank you. Poultry Leadership Podcast listeners, I have to give a plug out for Prism Controls. What's interesting is, as Brian talked about finding your pack, one of our core values is care deeply about people, then customers. The reason that's important is we can't do it alone. If you don't care about those you're around, if you're not willing to engage in community, then it's hard for you to feel connected even within our own company, Prism Controls. So the alignment of that is quite unique. As you've heard from Brian, as you've heard throughout other podcast episodes, just continue to reach out, give the best of yourself, and the world will continue to be a much, much better place. Your world will continue to be a much, much better place as you understand your purpose. So thank you, listeners. Look forward to having you guys reach out and tell me how this episode has affected you. You can find links to connect with Brian in the show notes, and be willing to share this with your friends and family to help them, again, find their purpose. So thank you, podcast listeners. Have a great day.